And welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Calhoun's. Father's Day next week, folks. Calhoun's is the place to take Dad. You can get him a big rack of ribs, of course, at Calhoun's. You can get him the barbecue, big, thick, juicy steak. Calhoun's is the place to take Dad for a taste of Tennessee. What better way to say Happy Father's Day than going to one of the many Calhoun locations in East Tennessee? Calhoun's. All right. Oklahoma's Bob Stoops made a surprise announcement and retired this week. It had been in the works so they could promote his offensive coordinator, Lincoln Riley. Stoops won 80% of his games, 10 Big 12 titles, and a national championship. So good luck to Lincoln Riley. Doomed. 33 years old, handpicked successor. Stoops is in his mid-50s. His father was a football coach, died of a heart attack in his mid-50s. That could play a role in his thinking, obviously. But ESPN's Chris Lowe tweeted something earlier this week I thought was interesting, if we can get this up here. He said he talked to several coaches, even before the Stoops retirement, who think the new recruiting calendar will drive more coaches out of the biz earlier. Folks, it's now a year-round sport. With this new calendar, you basically can bring kids onto your campus. It's almost year-round almost, which means if you've got wife, kids who want to see daddy, sorry. The summer vacation time we used to have is getting cut down to nothing. You've now got an early signing period that leads right up to Christmas. Do you buy that you're going to see more and more coaches retiring earlier because of this calendar thing?
Yeah, you know, John, I was actually out in Oklahoma City that whole week leading up to it, and all the talk shows were all over Stoops about his recruitment. It was a bad recruiting year. Guys were leaving Oklahoma, and they were hammering this guy. And I just wonder, enough is enough. You know, you got a new coach down there at Texas that's putting a lot of heat on. And as you said, that calendar has stepped it up. No question this is going to shorten careers. And also, the money these coaches make now,
right.
They don't need to coach until they're 60 years old anymore.
Yeah,
that's right. I think that's a part of it.
I'm gonna agree with Mike. I think it probably will add a little bit of stress. And like you said, you used to have a nice break post-spring practice and going through maybe the month of June. You could back off of this whole thing a little bit. And so I think, yeah, the new calendar probably will. And another good point, if I've made $15 million, do I really want to have a heart attack to get to $18 million?
Right. And I think
I would, personally.
But I think you're also, not to go too broad here and get us off topic, but as the host I will. It's a little like pro football. You're going to see more guys retiring younger than you've ever seen before because they're making more. Not only is there talk about concussions, but these guys are making enough money to say, 6 years is enough for me, thanks. I don't need to play 12. I don't need to sit out here and break my neck. And I think coaches the same way. With the money changing, I think that's a real variable that factors into the equation. Also this week, hold off on the graphic there, Chris. Also this week, Ohio State fired longtime basketball coach Thad Matta. It's the guy who turned in Tennessee over the Aaron Kraft stuff, so I'm sure there's some Vol fans that liked that. But Matta got canned. Ohio State, it's one of the best programs in the country. Big money program, great basketball tradition. They wanted Creighton's Greg McDermott. He turned them down to stay at Creighton. So then they decided they were going to get Butler's Chris Holtmann. They got him. He's an up-and-comer. Only 3 years experience as a D1 head coach going to Ohio State. Now let's put up this graphic to my director, Chris Lane. It's more than just money, folks. Oklahoma, they had Bob Stoops. You replaced him with your offensive coordinator, 33-year-old who's never been a head coach before. LSU had Les Miles, had won a national championship, 2 SECs. They replaced him. They go out. They can't just buy the best guy. They wind up with Ed Orgeron, promoted. You know, when they fired Les Miles, that wasn't the plan. Oregon, again, you got huge money with Phil Knight. Who do you wind up with? Willie Taggart from South Florida. And in basketball, you go from Thad Matta, Chris Holtmann, everybody's saying, oh, he's the next great guy. Maybe so. All I know is if Tennessee hired him, people would be saying, I had to go an up-and-comer. We didn't spend big money. Yep. I hear that more than anything when people talk about Tennessee football and how they're disappointed by it, and the coaches in the past, they don't like Butch Jones, they didn't like Derek. They think there's a chunk of fans who believe it's all because Tennessee didn't spend money. Tennessee has offered big contracts to big-name coaches who've said no. When you look at these schools, LSU, Oregon, Oklahoma, Ohio State in basketball, those are the best of the best. Look at who they hired.
You know what?
It's not just the money.
It says be careful what you ask for. Because, you know, you force somebody out. Thad Matta is a really good basketball coach. He ranked in the top 3 on a lot of lists, and you're telling him to hit the road. And why? Because the lately thing, you haven't made the NCAA tournament in back-to-back years. That's one of the things they said. One year you couldn't go, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm telling you, be careful what you ask for. think the other interesting thing about that list too is outside of Oklahoma, every one of those coaches that got the job was not the first choice. If you go down through there, I mean, I guess the assistant at Oklahoma was the first choice, but everybody else had to have a backup plan. They couldn't get the exact guy they wanted, and the next coach, the coach from Butler, he may end up being the next great coach. But obviously at Ohio State, they thought the guy at Creighton was going to be even greater.
Well,
So-
that's right. You always hear that, well, Tennessee would just go for the up-and-comer. Those are all up-and-comers. You know, this idea that if Tennessee would just throw the money, they could go hire Nick Saban away from Alabama doesn't work like that. Even if you are at Oklahoma, LSU, Oregon, or Ohio State in basketball. Saban didn't go in there to coach basketball. Your thoughts, Mike? You're staring at me.
No,
I'm going to give it to you.
No, I think it's a good conversation. I do think it's hard. I keep thinking about the Butch Jones hire, and I wonder when we were talking about Stoops leaving, does Butch get sick of it all and go to another job just because he doesn't want to deal with the misery of 9-4 being mediocre and not being good enough? Does he go somewhere where they go, you know what, Coach, get us to 9-4, we'll give you big raises?
Or is there a message here to Rick Barnes if you continue to go 500? If you continue to win 16 to 17 games, is that going to be good enough at Tennessee?
Yeah, the answer is no to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I just wonder what is good enough. But to me, I just think this needs to be said because I hear it constantly. Well, we don't spend money. You offered Will Muschamp a huge check when he was at Texas. He said no. And the next year he went to Florida. I mean, you've offered money. You offered a good contract to Charlie Strong. Said no. Next year goes to Texas.
Don't you think
at
a
some
lot of
point it's not just money?
At some point, it's how hard of a job this is. Neyland Stadium used to tower above all other facilities. They could recruit. Everybody's got facilities. You don't have the recruiting base that Georgia, Florida, Texas does, but you have the expectations. This is a tough job, and that's why I think a lot of coaches go, oh, no thanks.
Well, again, even though you guys think it had more to do with South Carolina and South Alabama was a good baseball program, let's lump that into it. You just had the head baseball coach at South Alabama say, no, I don't want the University of Tennessee. Maybe he's looking at the history of UT baseball right there and seeing.
Maybe he's comparing it to South Carolina, where he had been winning national championships.
Yeah.
Or Alabama and Auburn.
Well, it'll
for
be
that
interesting to
matter.
see where he goes moving down the line.
And
Because if he turns around like some of these other guys, and you see him take, Kentucky next year or Ole Miss
Yeah.
next year, then we're going to know it wasn't about waiting for South Carolina. It's just he didn't like the Tennessee gig.
I think I read the last 5 SEC baseball hires have all been with assistant coaches with conference connection.
You look at Kentucky, what they've turned around there.
All right, guys, very good. When we come back, did you hear this week there were some VFLs that said they're not getting the respect and love from UT that they think they deserve? We'll discuss that and how Penn State is just giving away free tickets to their former players willy-nilly. Come on back and hear the story.